Welcome along to episode 7 of the Weld Like Bazza podcast.
Industry news, machine reviews, interviews, and a lot more right here on the Weld Like Bazza podcast.
Welcome along to episode 7 of the Weld Like Bazza podcast, where everybody knows the price of everything and the value of nothing. Coming up on this week's show. Well, how are we all doing? I just want to thank each and every one of you for yet again taking the time to press play and have a listen to the show. You could never ever imagine how much your likes, shares, subscribes and the conversation that seems to be going on within the industry about the show. I could never ever have imagined that the show would be doing so well. Yet again, we've charted on Apple Podcasts and Spotify podcasts. We are doing super great. Our reach is bigger than I could ever imagined. So all I want you to do is tell your mates about the show. If you think you've got something to talk about regarding the welding industry, get in touch, because we are booking people to come in and take part of these shows. And ultimately, thank you, because without you, without somebody to listen to what we do, it would be absolutely pointless. All right. Secondly, I just want to remind you why we do the show. Number one, I want to hear about the stories from you, from your perspective, about my dad and how he potentially helped you or people that you know in the welding industry. I want to keep that alive, and I want to keep the buzz about my dad still there and present. I want to let you know what we do as a company more than ever, because I think so much of it got, kind of pushed behind the curtain for a long time due to the fact that Dad was quite ill, and as a business we never even had a marketing strategy. So there's things that we do that you probably never even knew about. And also, I just want to have a chat and spread some positivity within the welding industry, because I've been part of this my entire life, all right? And it can be a negative, almost catty industry to work in at times. And I'm really pleased to say that the people that I'm currently spending all my time with, or, the majority of my time with at work, have got a much lighter, happier, more positive outlook on it. And even when they are absolutely bombarded with the biggest and heaviest workloads ever, they are still smiling, happy, willing to pick up the phone and deal with any problems that we may have. Now, the reason why I want to do this show particularly this week is because of a few situations that have occurred. One is my mate Simon from SWP, while he's listening to this, is probably going to be on his way to meeting number 1. Which Simon doesn't need to be going to meeting number 1 today, because he's going to meeting number 1 to get a component for me. Because 3 weeks ago, I had a conversation with him and my mate Gaza at SWP, and they both know that I needed a particular product, a particular component for something that's going on this week. It should have been here Wednesday. It should have been here Thursday. Friday last week, I kind of put a call into Simon and said, Simon, I know that everybody is under masses of pressure, and what I'm asking from you is not massive. It's not a great big thing at the moment. But the product's not arrived, I don't have it, and I need it for next week. So when everybody's listening to this, especially if it's Monday morning, Simon, you're an absolute godsend of a hero. Simon is currently finding me the product, is in a meeting, collecting the product and dropping it off at me, and then is going to SWP HQ to carry on with his day. He doesn't need to do it, but he's doing it because he knows it's the right thing to do. And we all scratch each other's back. We all help each other out. Simon's not doing this, and I want to make this absolutely clear. Simon's not doing this to make sure that I still spend my money with SWP this month. Simon's not doing this to make sure that I don't fall out with SWP. Simon's doing this because in a very short period of time, Simon and myself, as well as actually I think pretty much the whole team at SWP have become really close. We've all got a really good relationship. I love the positivity that just thrives when I speak to those people. Prime example, my mate Gaza phoned me at 6 o'clock on Friday night, and we pretty much had our annual weekly meeting where we just talk about the week, get it all off our chests, and pretty much roll about like a pair of 16-year-old boys watching late night episodes of Beavis and Butthead on MTV. And I'm not joking, my mum sits laughing at me on a Friday night while I'm laughing at Gaz, okay? That positivity is what gets us all through working in incredibly hard times. You've only got to look around you at the moment. Everybody's pushing for more business, okay? Everybody's fighting for more business. And I think that's because, you know, the industry hasn't been extremely buoyant, has it? And anybody who says that, you know, they're smashing records more than ever, they're probably working in a very small sector of the entirety of the industry. You know, the UK is pretty much borderline on recession. That means construction, manufacture, and our output suffers massively. So we are going to be on the back foot. We've got to make happen what we can make happen. But we can do that in one of two ways, can't we? We can do that by being true to our Garma. Now, our Garma is, and if you're asking, if you want to know what Garma is, I'm currently studying on how to be a monk. That's my secret. There's probably loads of people out there that don't, but I don't think anybody knows at the moment. I'm currently studying about how to be and how to think like a monk. And Garma is our truths, our core values, our beliefs, you know, what we're pursuing. And I want to serve my business. And in order to serve my business, I need to serve my customers. That doesn't mean giving them the biggest invoice or the biggest bill to make sure that I put food on the table at the end of the week. What that means is I serve, and I enjoy serving, and in the product of all that, once I've served my customers, you know, that turns itself into an invoice which gets paid, and ultimately everybody gets what they need. Now, when we're not in recession as a country, there's a lot more of that to go around. And the guys that have got 15 and 20 engineers are probably going to do a little bit better than me, because there's only 3 of us at MS Welding currently, and the team of people that I choose to help me. On top of that, so if you look at that from a different avenue, we've actually got quite a big team of people at the moment. Everybody's Garma is to help each other. Yeah, business is business, but it's always about doing the right thing and helping each other. And they're the people that I'm inviting to help and work alongside me. So, let's take this back 2 years ago. And somebody walked into my workshop and they bought an EWM Tetrix, I think it was the 230 DC. And they came in for some training. They were working for a company at the time. They were going to be doing site work and they needed some training. I think they spent pretty much 6 hours with me that day. And they left that company and they went to work for a different company. And because of the time that we'd given them in the past, don't forget, if I've spent 6 hours with a company of my own time, that just chews into the profit. But that's not how we deal with people. We deal with people as people. If people need my time, people get my time. He came and bought another Tetrix 230 DC because he'd moved companies. They needed a TIG welder. They didn't have one that could do what he needed to do on the jobs that they were going to be sending him on. And he came to us and we gave him a package. And again, probably spent another 6 hours with him. Okay, on that package handover, making sure that it was compliant, making sure that it was happy, making sure that it did absolutely everything that he needed that machine to do. And then about a year ago, customer A contacted me and said, I am going to be setting up for myself. And I said at that point, okay, well, when the time is right, come and see me and we'll talk about what we can do to help you regarding getting a machine so you've got the right machine for the job to go out there and do the work that you want to do. He called a couple of weeks ago and I said, right, let's be honest about it. Customer A, that we're going to call you for today, do you actually need an EWM Tetrix 230 AC/DC? Because you've got to look at how much welding you might actually be doing. You know, if you're going to be doing a lot more mechanical stuff, this machine might get used 2 or 3 times a month, 2 or 3 times a week maximum. I was like, yeah, I completely agree. I don't need to be buying the most expensive machine, but I want something right. I said, well, ultimately, I can't offer you anything from a lower standard or something that's cheap or, you know, even sub £1,000 mark that's going to do what I want it to do, and I'm going to be able to put my name on it. But I am incredibly confident on the brand new EWM Picotig 220 DC. I think it's a great job for you, but what I will do is I will build it as a package. I'll do my torch that I modify and I make in the way that we make it. I will make sure that you've got everything you need, all the extras that I always add and more, I'll make sure you've got, and I'll give you all the time at the handover, like you always get. Right, send me a quote and you know, let's go for it. And I said, well, I'll send you a quote first of all. Okay, the package will be ready by tomorrow. When you're ready, come over and spend some time. So I quoted the price and, you know, I looked at everything that we'd included in the package and I looked at everything that my package had. And I'm not really bothered about what other people offer on the internet, but I know what my package is worth. And I put the price into him, and you know what? It's a fantastic price. It really is. I'm pulling up at home that night about 8:30, and I receive a message, and he basically turns around to me and goes, I've seen one about 300 quid cheaper on the internet. And I said, right, okay, so that machine that's £300 cheaper on the internet, I'm telling you now that ultimately I want to be able to serve you in the future. And in order for me to serve you in the future, I need to be in business in the future. If I sell you that machine £300 cheaper, I'm not making any money. In fact, by the time you've been over here and I've made you a drink and I've turned the lights on and I've spent a couple of hours of my time with you with that machine, I've made a loss. If my business makes a loss, then ultimately I'm not going to be here next year to serve you. So when you need me and you need my help, I'm not going to be here. And you're going to have to go somewhere else that's going to sell you a machine so cheap that there's going to be no money in it for them to even help you. They're probably going to give you in it a box. They're probably going to give you the machine in a box. And you're going to have to put the plug on yourself. If it's got the plug on, I'd want to make sure that it's been fitted properly. Do you know what I mean? I said, but listen, I cannot negotiate on my price. I think you should come over and have a look at my entire package about what I've got ready for you. And if it's still no good for you, then I'll sell it to somebody else. My client came, and I think he came with hesitation. He said, I didn't want to ask you, you know, and I didn't want to mention it to you. I said, you know what? It's fine. If you know, everybody knows the price of everything these days, but very few people know the value. So he had a look and he went, wow, is this the whole package? And I was like, yeah, electrode holder, earth cable, 2 gas hoses extended, custom consumable box, filler wire, everything, you know, really expensive torch, you know, not just a cheap torch, a really expensive one, custom built as well with a German head. He's like, wow, it really is a good package, isn't it? He put 2 welds down, and then I spent a little bit of time with him, storing some settings, going through some processes on the machine, and he bought it. And at that point, the customer realised that although somebody advertised the same machine cheaper online, that the value that he gets from me as a person, you can't buy. You cannot buy that because you're dealing with one person. And Barry is very unique. MS Welding and what they do are very unique. Okay? Because the Gamma is to serve and to do the job differently to everybody else. Okay? And we admit, we're not always going to be the cheapest. And in some cases, our machines may be slightly more expensive than something you can see on the internet, but it's never like for like. It's never like for like. If you add up every minute of time that we put into getting that package ready with the calibration and the testing and making sure that everything's right and the handover, then ultimately you get a lot more value for money. And that's the word there, value. My values are making sure that the quality of the products that we sell is the right quality and the right products for the customer to be able to pull that machine out of his van and get his job done. Because he relies on me. He wants to make sure that he plugs his welding machine in, pulls the trigger, and he gets the job done. Then, back to my initial kind of starting of the show, where everybody knows the price of everything and the value of nothing. I called into one of my clients this week. I was passing, I needed to be somewhere else to go do some calibration. And normally this client takes, 10-15 rolls of 1.2 wire from me every month and some consumables and some specific EWM parts from me. And I've noticed for a couple of months now that those orders haven't come through the door. And I called in and I said, I know that you booked me to come and do the calibration next week, but ultimately there's a few things I want to bring up. And the first is the fact that you've not ordered any wire, and the particular wire that you take from me, I store for you, I buy in and store for you specially, all right? And I do that so we can maintain a very reasonable price. To which a customer said, I've just been inundated with reps recently, and somebody told me that they can supply 1.2 SG2 wire at such and such a price. And I said, okay. Well, first of all, we supply SG3, but what I want you to have a look at is just one thing. I know how much that customer is buying that wire for that he's quoted for you. The brand and everything, I know how much he's paying for that. And that the price he's selling you it for, the minute it's been delivered or even handballed off a pallet, okay, for the small quantities that you take, that customer's made a loss. So if I was to sell you the same products that he's offering you at that price, that means I've made a loss. That means that next year in business, when you need me to come back and do your repairs and your calibration or help you with your welding procedures or help you, come out, because sometimes I have been out to that particular client before and welded things for them with my particular codings as well, or advise them on how to weld things, with their own facilities. I'm not going to be here. If I'm making a loss when I sell you products, I'm not going to be here next year to help you. And I want to be able to serve you. My Gamma is to serve my business, but to serve you as a customer, to make sure that I'm here when you need me. And he looked at me and he went, I never thought about it like that. I said, no. Now, I said, ultimately as well, they're going to be able to sell you that wire for a very short period of time at that price. If you listen back to the podcasts, you'll realise that everything now is making a massive detour, and once everybody's stocks are depleted and that new stock starts to come in and it's been on the water for another 8 or 10 weeks or 12 weeks, that price adds up into your rolls of wire. And he's like, yeah, do you know what? You've actually hit the nail on the head. The value of what we get from you far outweighs the price that we pay. And that's something I want you to pass on to your customers, okay? The value of what we give far outweighs the price that they pay. And that brings me to the next part, and probably the last part of the show this week. It's going to be a very short one, which is this week's payback. And this week's payback goes to Jim at Wakefield Welding. Now, you might all be thinking, wow, Barry's talking about Wakefield Welding, which is literally a stone's throw down the road from MS Welding. And potentially, okay, on paper, you may look at that and think Jim is a competitor. I want to tell you something about Jim. Since my dad died, I don't think a 2-week episode has gone by without Jim reaching out and making sure that I'm okay. I don't think that a month has gone by without Jim offering that if I need anything, any help, any advice, or just a shoulder to cry on, or a chat, or a cup of tea, to not hesitate to reach out. Okay? And also, the lads couldn't wait to get a picture of me drinking my coffee out of a Wakefield Welding cup when I called in to see them. And it was a pleasure to go see Jim in person and thank him for the support and the encouragement and all the help that he's offered. All the help that Jim has offered, right? And that shows how important it is for people to work together. So if you're looking for Kempi, let's say that Kempi is the product of choice for you. You're not going to come to me because you know that Bazza at MS Welding, Bazza from the Weld Like Bazza podcast, isn't going to sell you Kempi. I might repair an old Kempi for you. I probably will repair an old Kempi for you, but I'm not going to sell you a new one. If you want to buy a new Kempi and you're in the Yorkshire area, I would highly recommend giving Jim a call at Wakefield Welding, who is a premium Kempi supplier. I'm EWM of Fronius and you know, we sell other things as well. So does Jim. But Jim is Kempi and is Kempi through and through. If you're looking for Kempi in the UK, give Jim a call at Wakey Welding and I'm sure he'll be more than happy to help. So back to the very beginning of the podcast, where everybody knows the price of everything and the value of nothing. I value people like Jim and like Gary Waterman and like Simon at SWP, okay, for the time they give, for the effort they put in and the help and advice that comes and just the encouragement on a daily basis. So because this podcast is purely designed to help keep alive, obviously, my dad's energy. You know, there's not been very much said about my dad this week, apart from he always did say, listen, Jim's Jim at Wakey Welding and they do what they do. And we are MS Welding and we do what we do. And Dad even said that when Dad was alive. But Jim knows, Jim's actually sent work my way this last few months, okay? And I've sent stuff in the direction of Jim this few months that's not for me to do, all right? It's important that everybody works together. Everybody maintains their piece of the pie, okay? Because if we're all going to go to war and we're all going to fall out with each other and we're all going to start looking on LinkedIn about who our, you know, contacts are and who likes who and who likes what and who's posting what and who's posting what and who's liking what of who, and we're going to attack that customer and we're going to attack this customer, all that's going to happen is a situation like what could have happened this week. And if my customer had have gone and bought the EWM Pico TIG 220 at a cheaper price from the internet, that makes me think twice, and very suddenly twice, about selling another EWM Pico TIG 220, because I know I'm just going to get hammered on an internet price. And people aren't going to buy from me because they're not going to see the value. And what happens then, and I'm not saying this has happened at all, because EWM is still number one, my premium product that I put absolutely everything into and behind. But what could happen is if people were selling it extremely cheap, ultimately at a loss online, I'm going to stop selling it. I'm going to need to sell something else that serves my gamma, which means I can serve my customers by still being here next year and the year after by making a bit of profit and still being in business. Give it a bit of a thought next time, okay? And next time you call into a competitor, next time you see a competitor at a trade counter somewhere, give him a pat on the back, shake his hand, ask if he's all right. You know, let's all get stuck into this together, you know, because that's where we are. We're all in this together. And I'm a big believer in power in numbers, okay? And that doesn't mean you need 58 people in your workshop and 100 people in the office. That means power in numbers. Everybody sticks together, everybody works together, and everybody's all right. Episode 7 of the World Like Bazza podcast. Everybody knows the price of everything, yet the value of nothing. See you next week.
The World Like Bazza podcast is sponsored by MS Welding, the #1 welding solution provider. mswelding.co.uk